Welcome everybody to our Austin DFW San Antonio TUG event. My name is Chris Monahan. I'm president of Geomatrix. I'm on the Tableau User Group Advisory Council, and I will be your MC today. So it's great to see a lot of familiar faces. We took the 1 month off for the summer break, so I hope everybody enjoyed their summer. It's great vacationing, but welcome back. And for those of you that are new, we welcome you to our community here. So before we get started, I just wanted to go ahead and thank a lot of folks that helped make this event happen month after month, and that is our TUG Advisory Board. These wonderful people put a lot of energy. We meet twice a month, and they come up with all the ideas for all the events, all the speakers, line up the speakers. They do just an amazing job. So I want to thank everybody on the board. Big virtual round of applause for them. And if you're interested in joining our board, please reach out to me or anybody here on the board, and we'll get you connected. So we have a great event planned for you today. Quick agenda. I'm going to go through a couple housekeeping items, and then we have Carey and Nadeau from Loop, who's going to be doing a great presentation. And then at the end, for those that aren't familiar, we're going to do our network breakout sessions, where we're going to break the Zoom out into separate rooms, and you can pick a room, and it's a little bit of a networking event. You get some questions answered as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping. As far as the meeting format, you've noticed that this is a live meeting. So just like any meeting you're a part of, you can turn on your mic, turn on your video, whatever you'd like to do. But please, keep it on mute while we have our speaker presenting. We would like this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I'll field those, and I'll provide them to Carey Ann so she can answer them. We will do a short survey at the end as well, so look for that in the chat too, and we'd love to get your feedback. As far as some general announcements, this month we have the 2021 Iron Viz qualifier announcement, so you'll find out who are the top 10 finalists for Iron Viz. If you've ever been to TC or witnessed an Iron Viz, it's amazing, and you see some of the greatest dashboards you've ever seen in your life, and then you get to see them put it together in a couple of, just a few minutes time. It's amazing. But tune in. There's the announcement on August 12th. You should have received an email. If not, reach out to me and I can let you know. Also, Tableau 2021.2.1 specifically is out, but there's a lot of great stuff in 2021.2. There's Ask Data, Explain Data for viewers, as well as like collections. So really cool features. Check that out. And then lastly, we have our TUG events coming up on September 9th and October 7th. So mark those on your calendar, and we'll see you next time. So try to keep that short, Homer. How'd I do?
Super.
All right. Now I'll turn it over to
Awesome.
Homer, who's also on our advisory board, and he'll introduce our next speaker.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I am so excited to introduce Carey Ann Nadeau to you, because Carey Ann and I have been connected virtually for, coming up on 4 years, but only met each other face to face a few months ago. And she's just an amazing person, a serial entrepreneur and co-founder and co-CEO of Loop Insurance, a brand new company in a very old business, but doing it in a very new way. And we've had a lot of speakers talk about building a data culture using Tableau, and all the tools go with it. But Carey Ann is going to talk about actually building a business built on data. And she's done it more than once. So really excited. She has a background in urban planning, trained at MIT, years of experience working with the Brookings Institute and other well-known institutions. And Loop, by the way, is about to go live. So after you learn about it, you're going to be really excited that it's around the corner. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Carey Ann Nadeau.
Thank you, Homer. It is a pleasure to be welcomed to the, do we call it TUG group, or do we spell it out every time? Okay.
Yeah, we just call ourselves TUG.
The TUG group. I recently moved to Texas in March, just straight after the snowstorm, and finding folks of a similar cult-like enthusiasm for maps is a welcome find. So I'm really grateful, Homer, for you introducing me to this group, and hopefully I can continue to participate going forward in your meetings and events. It's definitely been a lifelong passion of mine to engage with visualization in Tableau, including maps and other visualizations that you can do in Tableau. And just to find folks, it feels like a home is also appreciated. So thank you. As Homer mentioned, I am the co-founder and co-CEO of a company called Loop. I figure I can share a brief presentation that talks a little bit, kind of the arc of my presentation today is intended to share with you a little bit more about Loop, what it is that we do, but more importantly, probably why we do it. And as Homer mentioned, data runs through the veins in my body, it feels like. I have spent a career building data-focused, I hate to call it data-driven companies or data-driven organizations because it's so rote, but truly data informs decision-making from being an analyst at some organizations, including the Brookings Institution, all the way up to leading data science teams and now as an executive at Loop. So it'll do a brief introduction into Loop and then a brief introduction to some of the data that we use and some of the insights that we've developed over the years that I think will be fun and engaging, particularly for the Texas audience, although soon to be in additional states. And then lastly, I wanted to also share with everyone kind of the source and the origin for the data that we use for many of the visualizations that you'll see that I've prepared for you all today. In part because I would love for you all to play with the data as well. There's nothing better than getting your hands dirty with actual data, and hopefully some of my presentation will inspire you to pursue additional analysis that you find interesting or is relevant to your communities. And so I want to make sure to equip everyone here with the data that we use to present to you so that you too can enjoy some of its benefits. So I think without further ado, I'll kick off a presentation. Does that sound good, Homer?
Yes, please.
All right, let's go.
Just need to share your screen. There you go.
There we go. And I'll put it into present mode. So what is Loop? Loop's a mission-driven insurance company. Specifically, we sell car insurance, which I think a lot of folks, mission-driven and car insurance is rare to speak in the same sentence. But when we say it, we really mean it. We're using AI to wipe out some of the baked in structural inequality and bias in the way that insurance is priced today and create a product that generates really fair insurance pricing for everybody, no matter what they do, where they go, or who they are. So Loop is actually a mobile first product. We have a cell phone application that you download on your phone to agree in agreement with our customers, essentially to collect some information so that we can qualify them based on factors that actually matter, including where they drive, how they drive, when they drive. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but also to share back with drivers safety insights that can help them become better drivers on the road. At the end of the day, as a car insurance company, it's really in our best interest to make sure that our drivers are staying safe on the road, not getting involved in crashes, not filing claims. And it's something we care deeply about, making sure that our customers get home safe to their families and friends or on their way to work or school or wherever they're headed. So we are, as Homer mentioned, launching. 8/18 is our launch date. So you currently cannot necessarily take advantage of this application today, but in about 2 weeks' time, those in the state of Texas will have access to join Loop. There is a wait list, so if you're worried that you'll forget the date, you can always sign up for the wait list as well. But to get into the meat of it, really what data we collect and why we collect it. I think a lot of folks don't know this about car insurance. They don't really, maybe, no one really tells you how your car insurance is actually calculated. So it's really difficult to learn. The information that you need to understand how you get your price is really intentionally made opaque, oftentimes by the insurers themselves, so that they can mask a lot of how they become more profitable. And so what Loop does is we start with a program that looks relatively similar to Progressive. So on par, our rates are pretty much the same. If you have Progressive, we're selling you the same insurance policy, the same coverages, backed by the same reinsurers, and the price should be relatively similar. Except what we've done is remove a lot of the characteristics that we believe are fundamentally and intrinsically perpetuating injustice and bias, both economic and racial. So specifically, what do I mean by that? I mean your credit score. Your credit score may matter when it comes to anticipating whether you're likely to pay back a loan, but it really has nothing to do with whether you're going to be in a car crash. And unfortunately, a lot of people have lower credit scores. Even a 650 credit score is our average typical credit score for folks interested in Loop. Even people with a 650 are getting penalized hundreds of dollars by their car insurance carriers today, which is something they certainly don't advertise on those commercials. Also things like your education, whether you've obtained advanced degrees, whether you own your home, your occupation, if you have a blue collar job. These things are, people receive penalties essentially for not having higher degrees or a white collar job. We've also taken a hard look at minor violations. So if you're somebody that has a couple speeding tickets, that's okay with Loop, because we understand that there are certain communities that are simply over policed. Everybody speeds, only some of us are likely to get caught. So we want to be thoughtful about seeing things like, a couple speeding tickets is really okay by us, but things like vehicular manslaughter, multiple DUIs that other car insurers will insure, some, in our opinion, somewhat recklessly, are not things that we want to attract here at Loop. We really want safe drivers, and that's reflected in the rates that we're providing safe drivers. We're looking at things like whether you drive in areas that have a lot of car crashes and how you behave on those roads. So whether you are speeding or talking on your cell phone in the worst possible intersection, that's really what matters when it comes to assessing whether you're going to be involved in a car crash. That information, will dive a lot deeper on this presentation, so you'll get to see some of the data that we use to come up with those metrics. And it's also important to note that we're not only transparent in events like this, we're actually quite transparent with our customers as well, and share that feedback via the application, so that you can actually say, here are the roads that I'm driving on that have a high probability of a crash. Here's how I'm behaving on them. And maybe you drive with greater awareness. Maybe you drive different routes altogether if you're able to. But just having that information shared, data is really powerful, and we should put it back into the hands of their customers if they can make better and safer decisions, is our kind of philosophy and attitude towards that. But also Loop is sort of built for the 21st century. So we recognize that our contribution to society and the environment is something that, as a car insurer, we are encouraging people to use their vehicle. However, we're offering discounts for drivers that drive less frequently because they're maybe now remote working, those that drive electric or hybrid vehicles, a lot of ways that we can sort of cut into our profitability to make sure that we are incentivizing our drivers to, see the world continue to exist in 100 years and Florida not sink into the ocean. Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff, the data. This is the stuff that I get excited about at Loop. As I mentioned, I'm the co-CEO. I oversee the data science team, as well as have a sort of lateral connection to our chief technology officer and the software engineering team. So we ingest massive amounts of data every day. We'll talk about how many crashes, but we have data lakes full of information, including things like where car crashes happened over the last decade across 27 states. It's about 100 million car crashes that we've currently collected, continuing to monitor in real time. And we're obtaining information from our drivers as well. As they're driving over the road, we understand where they are and how they're behaving on specific segments. So things that we care to ask sort of on a very day-to-day basis are how many crashes are really happening. One surprising anecdote to kick it off is that the number of crashes has been increasing year over year in the state of Texas, but also in the United States. And that it also includes during COVID-19. So in 2020 into 2021, the trend has continued to increase over time. And this is a real curiosity for people who care about transportation safety or just health and human safety or their own families. Why is it that car crashes are happening more often, particularly if there are fewer cars on the road? And we're seeing vehicles with advanced safety features like automatic electronic braking that you would expect would actually improve the situation, that fewer cars would get into crashes. So a lot of data that we are ingesting into our database, but the first question is really like, what is our baseline? How many crashes are we going to expect in where we're launching as the state of Texas? The next thing we definitely want to know is, where do they happen? The information about like where you are really matters. Your exposure to a car crash on a road that's like, from Austin to El Paso, driving through fields of gasoline extraction is probably a lower probability of a crash. There's just less opportunity to hit something. Whereas those like myself who need to drive down South Congress every day may see a greater risk exposure of people merging, retail stores, pedestrians, cyclists, and the volatility that is a burgeoning and growing city of Austin, Texas, with new folks coming in all the time. Because this is big data, which is, again, one of those buzzwords, but like we have vastly surpassed the threshold of big. We're into mega and data lakes and all of these sorts of things. But what it actually enables us to do is predict and start to anticipate where crashes are likely to happen. It's one thing to know, okay, car crashes happened on this road yesterday. Great, but I'm driving on the road today. And what is the likelihood that I'm going to be a victim or in the wrong place at the wrong time? So we start to build predictive models that anticipate, using this historical records of crashes, where crashes are likely to happen in the future, and then understand what conditions those crashes are happening in and which are most fatal, which for us is the most important thing. If we can actually move the dial on the number of crashes that are serious or result in serious or fatal injuries, that's really impactful, because many crashes are simply fender benders, but those that are serious or fatal have long-term, lifelong ramifications for people and their families. So it's something we're particularly focused on minimizing as much as possible. And then lastly, for our customers, who we love dearly and perhaps the most, is we try to individualize and personalize these insights so that drivers can really understand for themselves how to make safer decisions. That can be based on the way that you drive, or the roads that you drive on, or the times of day that you're driving on those roads. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So I thought to kick it off with a little bit of trivia, because I'm not sure, at least I didn't know how many car crashes happen every day. And Texas is a big state, but I was curious if anybody could take a shot at guessing. We can maybe use the chat or another window, Homer, to poll the audience where we feel like
chat is the best, so you can type.
Okay, great. So in the chat, would love to get a sense of the audience's sense of how many crashes actually happen in Texas. I'm just going to pull up my chat. I'm getting a lot of
snow. That was the question. So I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. I see a lot of 2000. I see 2000 plus, with or without snow. That's a great question. Actually, I'll qualify that. I used 2017 to 2019 daily average, so a 3-year daily average. So without snow, I think. All right, more than 2,000, 1,500 plus. Someone gave me an exact 1,370, which I appreciate as a mathematician. Someone said 13,000. All right, the great reveal. Go back to presenting. The average is actually 1,780 crashes every day in the state of Texas. So our 1,378 by Price is Right rules, I think you got it. Matt Weber. Congratulations. Although it's kind of a morbid statistic. So what's interesting about this is we use Tableau to generate these visualizations. We ingested crash data that was had information about date and time, and used Tableau to also assign Sunday through Saturday. So you can actually assign day of the week within Tableau. And so displays a relatively simple bar chart, but you can see some really important things for folks who are driving here in the state of Texas. The daily average is about 1,780 crashes. On Friday, that does jump up to about 2,000 crashes. That's a lot every day, 2,000 people. We also look at Saturday and Sunday, the weekend hours actually being below average. So that was sort of a surprise for us. What's going on Saturday and Sunday? I think it has a lot to do with traffic volume. There are fewer crashes on Saturdays and Sundays because people aren't commuting to and from work. But to set the stage, 1,780 crashes every day in Texas. How do I get my customers to not be the ones that are involved in those crashes? In particular, looking at where they drive. So I take a look at not only in Tableau, kind of the statistics by day of week or serious or fatal, but also where these things happen. And Tableau has some really amazing mapping features. This is just dropping point location of every fatal crash in the state of Texas over 3 years. But I have used, and I find it really useful to also visualize this information by zip code, which Tableau does allow as well. In their geographic units, you can group by zip code, which helps to aggregate some of these statistics or some of these points and summarize the statistics associated to them. For this purpose, each one of these is one crash. So I thought this visualization was actually quite helpful because we're talking about cars, right, crashing, and we see some of the highways that run through the state of Texas or out radially from some of Texas's biggest cities, where we do see, or where we would expect, a majority of crashes to happen. I thought to do another quick poll though, because I think it's fun to encourage competition. We got a couple people from around Texas on the call, and I'm also always wanting to know like how I rank against other cities. So what you're seeing on the map is every fatal crash. What I'm curious to know is what is the highest proportions of crashes that are fatal. So here I calculated the denominator as all crashes by city. And I'm curious if anyone wants to venture guesses as to which city, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, they think is the deadliest, has the most number of fatal crashes per per crashes. So hopefully that controls for population. H-Town, we got a lot. H-Town, Houston, McAllen. Yes, McAllen is up there, although not on the list. Corpus Christi. I love folks who pick the random one. I'm gonna say the winner, only 2 people got it. Michael, Link, and Jane. It's actually Dallas. Dallas is as a proportion of all crashes, the most likely to be fatal. About 5 of every 1,000 crashes in Dallas end in fatality, which is a lot. That goes down a little bit. Austin is 4.6. Houston, y'all got to give yourself a little bit more credit for being a pretty big city. You're in par with El Paso, Arlington, more closer to San Antonio, honestly, than you are to Dallas or Austin in terms of the number of fatalities. Really important for us and for our drivers, right, to understand where it's safe to drive. Oftentimes as well, we may be driving in cities that we're not used to. We often commute. My co-founder, John Henry, was just in Dallas yesterday at Dallas Entrepreneur Fest. And, going into a new city, I want to know, where is it unsafe to drive? I've never been on these roads, and these sorts of statistics are a little terrifying, but also can be helpful and informative to our drivers. Okay. Some other just fun facts, because once you get started with these data, it's hard to stop. And I feel like I have this great opportunity to help inform, if even a small sample of Texans, about when not to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So just some other visualizations we look at from the raw data that we're able to collect is the percentage fatal by hour. So same statistic as we had before, right? Fatalities per car crash. But what surprises me here is, if you recall back to day of the week, that days of the week in the middle of the week, the weekday, where we expected commuters to have had the most crashes. I would have anticipated that commuting hours here, maybe the times between 5 and 7 p.m., let's say, would have the highest order of fatal crashes as well. Turns out, of the crashes that happen on the weekends, although Saturdays and Sundays have fewer crashes, they're vastly more likely to be fatal. And so you see that 2 a.m., particularly 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, is the most fatal hour to be on the road in the state of Texas. Leave the bar an hour early, is my advice, right? It can literally save lives to leave at midnight or 1 o'clock. It is a significant change. So again, information that I just feel like data is power here, and all of this information is public. So what can we do to actually meaningfully help people stay safer and make it home to their families? On the right-hand side, this is a little bit more expected, but also important to note. The majority of crashes actually happen on roads with the speed limit between 30 and 45. So the majority of crashes are happening in places like downtown Austin, where the speed limit is low, but people are interacting quite a bit. It is different than fatal, however. So a lot of those crashes in Austin are going to be fender benders, side swipes, minor bumps, bruises at best, hopefully. Whereas if you end up on a road or you end up going above 75 miles an hour, you can see how dramatically the probability of a crash being fatal becomes had you been going 65. So useful advice maybe for teenagers taking the road, stay going under 70. And for those that maybe drive at night as well, where those speeds are more attainable because there are fewer cars on the roads, we can target this sort of information to let folks know, try not to drift above 85, because God forbid something did happen. The probability of it being fatal is more than double that of 55 or 65. Okay, so last thing I wanted to inspire and impart before I leave is all of this information is public information. I have built multiple companies, as Homer has said, off of open public data sets. Now, governments are not always the easiest to interact with or the most friendly or forthcoming with information, but the Texas Department of Transportation is one very glaring exception to that rule. They have a fantastic query tool that allows you to query quite a bit of data. It can be as detailed as the number of axles on your vehicle. The type of information that I presented today is some of them actually more basic queries around how many crashes happened, when they happened, where they happened. But I would impart everyone to visit, if they're interested in grabbing some of these data and doing their own analyses, this awesome query tool to get some of that data. And then of course, we love sharing visualizations as well. So if in your breakout sessions, you do end up playing with these data and visualize something that could help us share back with those in Texas how to stay safe, I would be more than excited to push it out on our Instagram, our Twitter, etc. The last thing I was curious before I left and before I departed and let y'all to your own devices is, what do you actually want to know about your drive? We are constantly querying our customers, but also our community about what type of information they'd like to receive. And these are kind of the top 6 or 7. So I'll open it up to the chat window if you want to throw your opinion up in the chat window. Would love to know whether you'd be interested, much like your Fitbit reports, how many steps that you've taken in the week, or how healthy you've been. We're hoping to report things like how much time are you spending behind the wheel? Are you driving on roads that have a lower than 60% probability of a crash? Are you driving within 15 miles per hour of the speed limit? How often? And help you monitor and evaluate that over time, so you can kind of gamify your own drive and become a better or safer driver. Cool. I would love your feedback. And like I said, you can always follow us on social and engage with us on social. We're a surprisingly accessible insurance carrier. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse. We actually engage. This is how Homer and I have become great friends. Every other Friday, we have an on-the-ground event at Cosmic Cafe in Austin, Texas on South Congress, where we invite folks who are entrepreneurs to speak about that journey. We just had a clubhouse last night about how to build a great customer service organization. Before that, we've had hackathons about clubhouses about how to hackathon. And it's just one way that, John Henry and I as co-CEOs can remain with our ears on the ground, listening to folks, and where we can add value from someone from our team who is an expert in what they do and sharing and fielding questions from others as well. So we're very active. We comment on all comments. So please reach out. And thank you. Thank you again for inviting me to your session. As I mentioned when I kicked it off, I feel like I found a home here in Austin, but also starting to find my community of like-minded people who are interested in data and data visualization and mapping in particular for me. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet all of you here and share a little bit about what I know and get you excited to sign up for Loop. Hopefully 8/18 we go live, and you can check us out at ridewithloop.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Carey Ann, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. A virtual round of applause for Carey Ann. Thank you very much. And what you showed, just the power of Tableau, what y'all are doing day to day to really help people is amazing. So thank you very much, and good luck on your launch.
Thank you so much. And Chris was going to take some questions. I'm happy to answer questions. I do have a hard stop, unfortunately, as we're trying to get into market 8/18 to sell auto insurance to all of you. But I would welcome any email to me directly. My email is carrieann@ridewithloop.com. Feel free to distribute that. And like I said, I'm very active on social, so I hope to continue the conversation going forward as well.
We will. Thank you, Carey Ann.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Well, that was great. That was really just truly amazing on how, it just shows, the powerful analytics that they're doing using Tableau and analyzing all that amount of data that they have in their data lake. It's just amazing. So very, very good presentation. And I'll send out Carey Ann's information in our follow-up email after the event. So our next session, for those of you that haven't participated in one of these before, is our networking breakout sessions. So we have two sort of breakout rooms that we're going to split into right now. One is the show and tell, and one is for strategy and adoption. Homer's going to lead the show and tell breakout room, and I'll be on strategy and adoption. So when I hit the button here, feel free to pick which room you want to go to, and you can always switch back and forth if you want. But before we break, I just want to remind everybody that down in the chat window, I put a link to a survey that has 2 questions. Please just answer that. It gives the advisory council just a little more feedback on what you guys liked and any additional comments you have on what you want to see in future events. And then in addition, just remember September 9th is our next TUG event. So with that, I'll say goodbye to some of you, and some of you I'll see in a few minutes. So let me go ahead and break out into the breakout